I'm gonna make it 99 cents. We'll see. Mystique, I'm not going to go over this with quite as fine a tooth comb as I just did color, because I realize I'll be here for a long time. But I will say the main shtick of all of its features and what's really changed. Again, I'm not going to go into the flavor text of it. You can check that out in the actual document. So Bard College Mystique. The whole point of Mystique, right, is you are the fortune teller, right? You are the cryptic mystic seer. If you're familiar with the Curse of Strahd campaign setting, maybe you're one of the Vistani-like individuals, very cryptic and mystical in your fortune-telling bardic ways. And so at third level, one of the main features you get is Minor Arcanum, which basically just gives you the Thaumaturgy cantrip. Of course, booming voice, flickering eyes, dimming lights, light shakes in the ground. It does everything you need for that kind of mystic vibe of power. And then, of course, you also gain the Augury spell, and you can cast it at will, which is a big one. The Augury spell has some built-in limiters, so you really don't want to cast it more than 3 times or twice, really, ever anyway. But I just thought it was a really cool, roll the bones and get a fortune read of weal or woe or what have you. So that was one of the main reasons we wanted to include that. And you get that in Minor Arcanum at third level. And then Instruments of Fate. By third level, you can pick a set of otherwise mundane objects, so like a deck of cards or some knuckle bones, a crystal sphere, some marbles, etc. And you can make those objects into your Instruments of Fate. Spellcasting focus for you, and if you lose them, you can use a 1-hour ceremony to create magical replacements. So it's the standard, your magical supplies, the things you use to read fortunes are your spellcasting focus, if you want. And of course, nothing in this prevents you from using like a musical instrument or any other classic bard spellcasting focus. So this is just in addition, you can do this cool stuff. The next big thing you get at third level is Mystic Inspiration, which allows, it makes your bardic inspirations do something else in addition to their normal effects, and you roll on the Fateful Revelations table. And so your options become Cursed, which is the bardic inspiration is less effective. When you would roll it, you roll twice and use a lower result. It's kind of like disadvantage on your bardic inspiration die. Inspiration die is totally normal, no special additional effects. Shielded, which grants temporary hit points to the creature when they spend the bardic inspiration die. Favored, which allows them to roll their bardic inspiration die twice when they would use it. And Destined, which allows them to, instead of rolling the bardic inspiration die, they can expend the die and just re-roll the ability check. And they will continue to re-roll the ability check, saving throw, or attack roll until the new result is higher than the original. So it's like super advantage. At worst, they roll a 2 and they re-roll and they get a 3, and it's like, well, crap. But at best, they roll a 2 and they re-roll and they get a 20. So it's a very cool feature. Very nice. And then, of course, Unbound, which means you get to pick which of these you want. Sometimes maybe you want Shielded, so for the extra hit points. Sometimes maybe you want Favored, just to get that high reach if you're up against a really high DC. And sometimes you just want Destined because it has the potential to give you the biggest bonus. Big Blame play use it on a 19. Yeah, Rytel, I like, yeah, exactly. Now it has to be greater than or equal to. So you have a 50% chance of critting if you use it on the 19. But it is pretty good. I very much like that play. You're turning your natural 19s into a 50% chance for another crit. But yes, that's what you get at third level. At sixth level, this is one that has changed. Destined disadvantage equals super duper advantage. Let's see, I think Destined would work, excuse me, in the same way that, pardon me, that Lucky would interact with disadvantage V-Bunny, but I'm not entirely positive, so I need to look it up to figure out what the exact ruling would be. I'm sure there's a way to correctly interpret the text here with what that would work. But that's a really interesting concept, how Destined interacts with disadvantage. Anyway, at 6th level, you get Major Arcanum, and this is a feature that's changed the most since our initial showing of this subclass on the stream. Previously, it gave you access to the Warlock spell list, which was a pretty dramatic shift. And while that got the right kind of power that we wanted for the class and that mystic vibe, there were a couple of spells that the Warlock got, namely like Armor of Agathis and like Summon Lesser Demons, that just really were a little off. The Animate Dead just didn't quite work for the vibe we were going for here. So as a result, we've shifted it, and instead, this ability expands the Bard's spell list to include all divination, enchantment, or illusion spells. Those are huge classes of magic. Overall, this makes the Bard spell list still about the size of the Sorcerers, after including all of the spells they didn't already have from these schools. And it gets them a couple of really cool options. Hex is a really great one that they get from this, which is so on key for this kind of a class, or for the vibe, right, of the creepy fortune teller, the mystic. Yeah, a couple of other good. Mental Prison is a really neat one that I think makes a lot of sense. But overall, this is going to address the Bard's biggest issue as a class, which is it has a lot of trouble with its spell variety in terms of its choices. Cool choices to pick from for your spells. And then also, it's very much like the the Divine Soul Sorcerer, which the Divine Soul Sorcerer gets all of the cleric spells. Well, these are going to get these divination, enchantment, and illusion spells. Roger Twice says, looks like an improvement to me. Yeah, I definitely agree. Both flavor-wise and from a balance perspective. Just throwing the whole Warlock spell list on there. Well, it's very cool. You know, we also don't want to take away from the Warlock. What we really want to do is emphasize how cool this can be on its own, as its own deal. So that's what you get at 6th level. And then at 14th level, you get the Doom Prophecy. And this ability's also changed since our last release here. And yeah, the way it works is your mystic utterances can weave doom into the threads of fate. As an action, you choose a creature that you can see that can hear you and condemn them to certain doom. You roll 2d4s and record the total, which becomes the countdown for your Doom Prophecy. For the first time on a turn that you or one of your allies would damage the doomed creature, you decrease the countdown by 1. And when the countdown reaches 0, the prophecy fulfills and the damage from the triggering source against the doomed creature becomes maximized. And of course, the prophecy loses its power if it is not fulfilled within 1 hour, and you have to finish a long rest before you can again. It's just a really, really cool, you pick a dude and say, you are doomed, and get to blast the ever-living crap out of them at some point. I can see this as being a very, very fun feature to set up your meteor swarm. The kind of slightly randomized aspect of the Doom Prophecy countdown, I really like how that could interact in a game with maybe players being like, no, wait, don't attack them. We need to save the countdown for the disintegrate or whatever. Or for the storm clerics, you know, lightning, whatever. There's some really cool ways that I think this could play out to create very dramatic and fun moments. But yeah, overall, that's what our College of Mystique looks like in its release form. As before, we've got links to our playtest feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any on it when you playtest it at some point. Thank you all. And let's see, we got a bunch of comments in the chat. I apologize if I've missed any, guys. Raz, I like the big brain. Everyone here gets a special discount code for 50% off. I don't even look. I have such a hard time figuring out how to upload these guys to the DM's Guild at first. I don't even know how I'd do a discount code at this point, guys. But like I said, check it out in the DM's Guild. It's $1. And if that's too steep for your blood, you can always play with it for a little bit with the the full-size preview, which has the sample overlay on it. And then, if you decide you like it, we'd love if you bought an official copy at some point and threw us a buck. Warlocks don't really get to change their spells often. This is a bit better than a Warlock, in my opinion. Elscale's other spellcasting, well, Warlocks don't. Oh, of course, V-Bunny, of course. It definitely would have been different if we had kept it with just the Warlock spell list. But we wanted it to really be its own deal, and felt that these schools of magic, divination, enchantment, and illusion were a bit more fitting.